taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source? No, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry. Apparently I haven't fully woken up yet. Hope you'll all bear with me. It is May 25th, 2019. This is the Saturday morning/afternoon edition of the show, depending on where in the world you are. It might be midnight too. My name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with the Cybsidian, who I believe...
Good morning.
Oh, good. You're more chipper than you were sounding a moment ago. That's good.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to turn you up just a little bit. Make sure we get the volume levels balanced out here. Hello, everybody who has been busy in the live chat since like 12 hours ago. It's really awesome to see, as always. Hello to Bluntman, Nivazi, Russ Hunt, who says, Bethesda, let me guess, they're going to announce Fallout 93 and a third. Now, I think I lost some in the middle, but hello also Sinister Sinner, Bernie Carrillo, Nicola Yurikin. I believe that's a name I don't recognize. Welcome to the show. Raby. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to pronounce that. My apologies. Cuckoo and Sam Jazza and Megan Smart, Angelo T, and Notional, who is apparently tuning in live for the first time. You're a big, fat, soggy liar, Notional. Anyway, welcome, everybody. As I said, this is the Augmented Reality Podcast, sleep-deprived edition. If you're listening live this morning, please say hello in the live chat and send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us in YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. And I discovered this week that the podcast actually goes more places than I actually ever intended it to go, which is good. But I don't even know all the places it populates to, because I upload to SoundCloud, and then I set it up to go to Spotify and iTunes. But it also goes to Podbean, and who knows where else it's just sort of automatically populating to. So anyway, if you're listening on one of those platforms, we appreciate your likes and follows there as well. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up to the audio platforms, so if you want the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. All right. So, and Raby says it means corpse. You pronounced it okay. Okay, interesting. Good to know. All right. So, we're going to be talking about E3 today. It is full speed ahead. We've got, of course, the big event in gaming coming up in just a couple of weeks here. And we're excited to see what a lot of the companies are going to be bringing and showcasing for us. We're excited to see what Projekt Red has for us, because apparently they've got a lineup of things planned. And if that being the case, that being a specific word used in the description of what they're bringing to E3 this year, and that by Pyotr Nilubovich. Pyotr Nilubovich, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's the chief financial officer for Projekt Red. Gave a description to the media about how the month is going and what they're excited for E3. So we're going to dive into that. We're also going to talk about Bethesda and what they're up to, and a little bit about the future of that company. Just to start us off with something that is amazingly stimulating for a Saturday morning, the World Health Organization will be making a final decision this weekend on gaming disorder. We talked about this briefly in the past, but is gaming disorder a legitimate mental health condition? Are they going to add it sort of to the documentation on, what constitutes a mental health disorder? Apparently, they're going to be making that decision this weekend, and finalizing all that. I don't want to dive too much into it, but that was interesting, I thought. I have a background in psychology, so I'm going to keep an eye on that and see what they decide, and whether or not we all have a disease.
Also, how they reference it, because it's like okay, you start with that. I'm pretty sure you can basically go anywhere. like I'm sure surfing will be classified as mental illness.
Do you have surfing disorder?
Although that kind of makes sense a little bit, maybe. But I mean, it's like anything that you do. Like you can overdo anything. I knew.
Is that why Sony moved to California?
Maybe I knew of a guy. I did not know him. I knew of a guy who, when jogging, he would zone out so much, he ended up jogging off the side of a cliff and dying. He won a Darwin Award. It's like
geez.
you can take anything to an unhealthy level, right? So, like shock. Oh my god! You could take unhealthy video gaming to a whole new level. It's like, really? Oh my! Mm-hmm. That's shocking.
Well, it's true. I mean, we do have eating is a normal, healthy activity that's necessary for survival. If it becomes a problem to the point where it is harming your life, it's called an eating disorder. So I guess it kind of makes sense that gaming disorder might be a thing. But as Uriah says, why isn't there a movie disorder or a music disorder? And part of it depends on whether or not it gets to the point where it's detrimental to your life. And so I mean I think it's possible that anything could become an obsession, and anything could become potentially a disorder that becomes disruptive to your life to the point where you're neglecting your family and whatnot. So I think there is a legitimate basis for something called gaming disorder. But on the other hand, what constitutes that, as opposed to, I don't know. We'll have to see how far they take it, and is normal. Like almost everyone's addicted to their phones. So is it a phone disorder, or are we not calling that a disorder just because it's sort of normal and accepted?
Yeah, bizarre.
All of these questions are things. I mean, it would take. This isn't a psychology podcast, so we can't really dive too much into that. But it's interesting stuff to think about, and if any more relevant information comes out about that, we'll bring it up because it does relate to gaming, of course. Notional says watching 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight must be some sort of disorder.
I agree.
Could not agree more. Russ Hunt says it's cyberpsychosis.
Now, hold on. We should clarify. Not because of the the fun times that you have in it, just because of the terrible acting and writing. Just want to make that clear.
Anyone who
it's not because of the other stuff. No, it's the writing and the acting that really just
if
mental disorder. Right.
Anyone
there.
actually enjoys those movies, I'm sure there's something going on. It's Russ Hunt says it's called cyberpsychosis. If they don't call it that, I will be pissed. Absolutely. There's a Futurama episode
really
after the show got renewed. There's a Futurama episode where Hermes starts getting cybernetic augmentations, and he just can't stop himself. Like he gets addicted to it until he's like this massive giant mech, and then finally he decides to replace his brain, and it's hilarious. It's an absolutely hilarious episode. All right. So that's all we're going to talk about as far as that goes. But we're going to talk about E3 now. Saib, are we going to tackle Bethesda first, or are we going to?
Sure, let's go for Bethesda, because this is where the
all right. So Bethesda has been an interesting creature over the past few years, and I would say it's been an interesting ride with Bethesda over the past few years. I mean, 2015 we had the awesome E3 showcase that revealed Fallout 4, of course. And then things have been a little rocky since then. 2017, they really didn't have much to show for themselves. 2018, last year, was a little more interesting, but there was a big focus on Rage 2, and of course there was a lot of Pink and lots of punk rock. And it was a little bit short, if I recall correctly, but some interesting things came out of it.
It was long enough that it warranted a show.
Right.
It wasn't as long as a lot of their hardcore fans wanted. And now we see that kind of like 76 was out way too soon. It was basically just an asset flipped. It was a glorified asset flip. that has drawn enormous negativity. Now, the world and the gameplay itself are like it's a decent like foundation, but just the fact that the story, the technical bugs, the issues, the server kind of unfriendliness, the modding scene, and how that's kind of gone all over the place. Like, you can mod in a different colored suit, and you'll get in trouble in the same way that somebody who mods in an auto shooter or something like that. And it's
so they're not well set up to detect, what's actual hacking and what is modding.
And
in the
there's a
game.
lot of fixes that have been established by the community that the people from the community have come in, said, "Oh, hey, yeah, I can fix this problem, this problem, this problem." So just running fixes also is, gets you in trouble too.
Right.
So it's it's just been an absolute gong show from everything from the from all of the physical stuff that they've had gone wrong with it, like the materials for the bag, the constant issues that just flare up over and over and over again. The thing has been basically like a slow motion train wreck, and it's just been horrifying to watch. And it's been pretty quiet now, despite the fact that they've had some progress in it, and that they have plans to start introducing more stuff. Quite possibly some private servers going free to play on Steam, having a bunch of stuff. None of that is going to be worth more than a few minutes of mentioning. In fact, the biggest thing that I want to see from Bethesda on the stage at E3 is for Todd to come out and say, "Hey, look, about 76, we kind of dropped the ball on this. We should have involved the community more earlier on. We should have. There was a lot of things we should have done. We're sorry. Game's going free to play. Promise not to do, buy for power microtransactions, pay for power, pay to win microtransactions. We know we kind of dabbled with it recently a little bit. We're sorry. We're not going to do it again." I doubt we'll see that. I really do. And I'll talk about the whole microtransaction thing and where Bethesda's heading in general. Again, I stand by the thought that basically they had a pretty good idea. It was just the implementation was poor, and it was pretty much an asset flip. Those were the two biggest things.
It's Fallout 4 multiplayer. That's what it is. It's basically what could have. I don't know. It comes off almost like it almost feels like a community-made mod in some ways, just a multiplayer mod.
Yeah. So the story in general is kind of sad and all over the place, and doesn't really focus in on the things that they could have focused in on to make it worth it. Yeah. So it's been.
Yeah. Well, and so you're looking forward to it, or not? Maybe not looking forward to, but you're anticipating some updates on Fallout 76. But now you have said that you believe the game is going to get better, and I have said that it's going to take a lot. Like, they're going to have to improve it significantly to get me to ever fire that game up again. Do you think it'll ever get to the point where, like, it has any kind of a revival, or is it kind of dead in the water? Is it kind of going to be a footnote in Bethesda's history?
No, they can make it better if they really wanted to.
But do they want to? Do they want to badly enough?
Yes, yeah, they want to badly enough. It's a big potential cash cow. They know it is. Any game that functions in that kind of format can be, and oftentimes is. You look at games that run in the same kind of genre, whether it's even the horrible Ark series. Like, Ark has been plagued with a lot of problems, a lot of issues. I would say more so, just kind of spread over a longer period of time. And ultimately, it boils down to, these games make money because they offer this sandbox that you can't get in other games. They offer an environment that the player can kind of explore and get into, experience and build stuff in. They released on their own system, on their own Bethesda launcher because of this, I think. They always have had this, hey, it's going to go free to play option. and the fact that you can, at the same time they go free to play, they're probably going to have servers that you can buy and rent, and then you can change the rules on, and then and those servers are exactly like the Minecraft servers, and you can have a bad experience in them. You can also have with a good game, but you can also have an amazing experience with the right people in a bad game.
If they're set up well enough. It's kind of that way with all kinds of... Whenever you have community-made content in a game, there's always going to be some garbage, but once you find the stuff that's made by people who truly care about doing a good job, then it's usually typically really good.
Yeah, and it's like...
Sometimes better than the game itself.
Yeah. So overall, the general direction of the experience, shall we say, is that they know that they can capitalize on this, they can still make money on it, and they can have a second launch that's a little bit better. Will it ever replace their horrendous first launch? If they smash it out of the park, but in order to do that, they've got a long ways to go, and you'll never truly get rid of that first launch experience. You only launch a game once, and as we've seen with tons and tons and tons of MMOs, as we've seen with No Man's Sky, basically it if you don't nail that first one, you'll have a stigma around the game for the rest of its life, and you're also going to negatively impact whatever other game you put out. It's why the guys, I think it's Hello something, the guys who made the No Man's Sky, they had to go back to the drawing board and make that game work. Otherwise, they never would have worked again. They never would have been able to make another game ever again.
Yeah,
because there was no way that they could sell a game with that kind of an experience, with that kind of a background. Their only choice was to go back, improve the game to the point where people who could play it would say, yes, this is now actually a good game. This is something that I can get behind. This is something that's there. There's a community that supports them. But if you have zero skill in getting that image out there, if you've not done a good job at fixing that, nobody's going to buy your next game. They're going to look at that and go, oh yeah, these clowns, yeah, no thank you.
They had a failed game.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid this with a 10-foot pole. So they had to go back and make that thing work. They had to go back and let the fact that pretty much the entire internet called them liars, especially Sean. He was a lying piece of filth at some point in the vast majority of everybody's eyes. The fact that they promised that you could see other players, and that the fact that was figured out within the first week to be untrue is like, and they still stood by that right up until it happened. They were just like, no, there's no way it's going to happen, because we've spread a million accounts over 1 billion stars. There's no way that they can catch up and see each other and meet up with each other. Yeah, well,
the internet always finds a way.
Never underestimate a gamer. Like, seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a silly move on their part for absolute sure. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's get back to Bethesda here, and let's just talk a little bit about the general direction of the company. We haven't seen much in terms of what we think they're going to talk about at E3, but they've got a full showcase going again. So, besides what you mentioned to me yesterday, which is some... what was it? You're saying Rage 2 DLC, which is its own thing that I'll get into in a minute, and then one other thing that we're anticipating. So, what are we going to see from them this year? Are we anticipating some surprises? Are they deliberately keeping things quiet? Are they taking a page out of EA's book and just saying, you know what, let's not try to overhype people, but let's surprise them with what... Oh, Starfield is what it was. You think we're going to see info on Starfield this year?
I think that's a strong possibility. The fact that they've said, "Oh yeah, we're not talking about it." This is so funny. This is so funny. So you have a huge, enormous amount of people who call Todd Howard a liar, and they say he lies, and then he goes on a podcast thing, and he goes, "Yeah, we're definitely not going to have, we're definitely not going to have Starfield at this E3, and people say, "See, he's telling the truth. They're not going to have Starfield there." It's like, okay, okay. So he's a liar one minute when it's convenient to your idea of what he is and what he's saying and what he's doing. He's a liar when he's saying something that you don't want to be true, but when he's saying something that you do want to be true, then he's like, he cannot lie, period. It's like, make your mind up. He's either going to be one way or the other, period.
Did he specifically say that there wouldn't be Starfield?
He kind of included it roughly into a very lightly touch. We talked about when he said it, and I said that the way he phrased it was kind of weird, and he hasn't elaborated on it since then.
Okay.
He says, we're working on a bunch of games, and the next 2 games, we're not going to have those at Elder Scrolls 6. We're not going to really have that at E3, along with the other one. So don't expect it, don't ask for it.
Okay.
And he just kind of loosely passed it off. But this was also at like one of their this was also where they were really, really negative in the polls. So yeah, it could be a plan. So Jason Cropper has given us $5 and become a member.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
You.
Thanks for the new membership and for the super chat message. Says, thank you for all the awesome videos. You are all appreciated. Thanks to all, even those who work hard in the background. Thank you. Well, you're welcome times 3. There's 3 thank yous in that message. We really appreciate that you really appreciate our content. All right, so
we are going to have we're speaking of working hard and people working hard in the background. We have pretty much guaranteed that we will have some gameplay footage of some type of the new Halo Infinite game available shortly after E3. We have a thing that we're working on for that, so that's going to be really cool. Because talk about new games that are utilizing new tech. This game apparently is reportedly is using everything and the dog that you've never seen before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Really, really pushing new tech. We've talked about this multiple times before. Mm-hmm. They're utilizing tech that has not been... Like, what we saw in Red Dead 2 was... and Andre Velasquez, thank you once again for another $5. And I think I can do this. let me see if I can get it. There we go. That was his comment in the...
Yeah, that was the message.
Yeah.
The evil laugh. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so anyways, so yes, absolutely. There's this, there's this direction. So yeah. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes, right? Just getting back to the Bethesda thing. So, will we see it? Maybe. Might we not see it? Also probably. However, there's a couple of things that I want to kind of address when it comes to this Bethesda thing. So, what Bethesda has to show off is going to be Doom Eternal and DLC for Rage 2 and a little bit of the upcoming Young Blood. Now, Young Blood, I believe, is basically just a glorified expansion. So it's actually...
It's an expansion to Wolfenstein 2, much like Old Blood was an expansion to Wolfenstein: The New Order. Clever naming there, by the way. I didn't even catch that when they announced Young Blood, that it was a playoff of the Old Blood. I thought that was clever. Anyway, yeah, so, I am interested in that, and actually, who was it in the chat here? So, Minty66 saying, the only thing I'm getting hyped for this year from Bethesda is Doom Eternal. That was the other game you mentioned to me yesterday. So, we for sure know we're going to see something from Doom Eternal, also Rage 2 DLC. Now, Minty mentions The Evil Within 3, hopefully The Evil Within 3. Have there been any hints about that, possibly?
There's been... So, as far as, like, rumors and stuff like that, there's basically nothing.
Okay.
They have... I mean, they run a tight ship there normally, but with the added negativity that the studios had, there's more of a concern for people to keep quiet about what they're working on, because they got to prove that they can, that the bad stuff was a one-time thing, right? So they've got to step out of their comfort zone, and make something really, really good. They smash it out of the park if they want to keep their jobs, essentially, is what it boils down to.
Right.
It's like, and their reputation. Like, people don't like working for companies that have a bad reputation. It's not something that exactly makes you happy to show up at work every day, when everybody is shunning you, basically, and you go to the grocery store and you have a lineup of people behind you going, shame, 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 shame. It's just not something that you want to do. So the developers, the grunts, they're interested in keeping their mouth shut, because they're working on something that's going to showcase their skills and their talent, and hopefully get them a better job, or get them back to where they think that they should be, as far as where their career is going. The next thing that you have is this message from the company saying, form ranks, tighten up. We're going to make sure that this is going to come by the books. We're going to play it awesome. We're going to do it right. We're going to make sure that this works. We're not going to mess around. We're not going to screw around on this. That we're actively interested in making this better, period.
Right.
And so there's that, right?
Well, and on that note, let's talk a little bit about the direction that Bethesda's been going in, because, Fallout 76 was a major misstep, and there was, it was a disaster. There was misstep after misstep. It was just a whole conglomeration of missteps surrounding Fallout 76, and we were hoping that was a one-time thing, but I've been a little concerned, considering the direction they seem to be going with some of their other titles that they're publishing, not necessarily developed internally. And specifically, I'm talking about Rage 2. You have a game that's developed by id Software and Avalanche Studios. Super fun gameplay. Absolutely, the combat is a blast. But it's very devoid of content. It's kind of, there's hints of Anthem here. Giant, beautiful world, no content in it. And then, within 6 months after release, they're going to have 2 DLC packs available. I've talked about this previously on the podcast. I made an entire video about it. So this reeks of publisher intervention, and it reeks of chopping up the story so you can sell some of it later as DLC. We're talking about a DLC expansion 3 months. The first one's coming out 3 months after the game release. And honestly, I wouldn't really have a problem with that if the original game release actually had a satisfying amount of content in it. Mm-hmm. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but this almost looks like Bethesda came in and said, this looks like basically a cash grab decision on Bethesda's part.
Maybe, but it's and again, I'm going to talk about this in a second here when we talk about like where they're headed, financially. But I want to finish up with what we're going to see at PAX, at E3. So we're going to see some DLC, obviously, for Rage 2. They're going to highlight it. They're going to showcase it off. They're going to talk about how amazing the game has been and how wonderful it's selling. But for the most part, they haven't, the game has been received kind of meh. Like, open world shooter, not much story, really light on content.
That's the big complaint with it, yeah. That's the big complaint. It's just there's nothing there.
Seems to be a little short, and by the way, I'm not looking forward to spending another $30 on DLC just this summer, right? Getting to the end of the season, and it's like, oh, hey, yeah, so that's kind of a thing. But so it's kind of embarrassing. I do want to mention again, Youngblood is actually going up for really cheap. Like it is an expansion. It's not a lot of money, and it is pretty much a full game. So that's interesting. But what Youngblood is opening up in the storyline, potentially, it might be a little bit too soon. It depends how this goes. So if Youngblood is highly successful, raises a lot of general popularity, does really well, then we'll see probably one more game featuring the two characters before they move on to the next game that is supposed to be in the lineup as far as like chronologically, and that's going to be a Commander Keen game.
Not sure if
and
anyone...
I wanted to throw this out because if this has if they really think that they've got a winner here with this, and I've got to give some props to Youngblood. It looks interesting. It's got a really interesting mechanic as far as shooters goes. I think overall it's not as bad as what some people are assuming, but at the same time, it's like there's a little stuff to be concerned about. This happens with every Bethesda game. Whoever's in charge of their hair department, making hair for characters in the game, needs to actually probably go get some experience with actual hair. Like, I don't want to sound rude or mean or whatever, but I have never seen a Bethesda game with character hair, vanilla character hair, that's good. It's always like 2 steps backwards as far as like the progression of when it comes out. The hair for the girls in Youngblood is like, it looks like it was made 8 years ago with technology 8 years ago, and it doesn't actually look good, and it doesn't actually include any of the like styles that would be okay. And it's not just them. There's a picture of a like a movie actress or some person. It's like a billboard in the game, and her hair does not look like it was, like, it doesn't look like it's part of her body. It looks like it was like basically just photoshopped on with, not with Photoshop, because then it might actually look somewhat convincing. It looks like it was photoshopped on with MS Paint. It's just, and this has been the whole thing throughout. One of the biggest mods that you always have in a Bethesda game is hair, because the hair is just so bad and it's so terrible that anything that anybody can make in an hour on a weekend and upload it as a mod is going to be better than what they put into the game. Like, please Bethesda, just invest in some actual hair physics for once. Like, my God, it's just, and pick a style. Like, find a style and run with it, for crying out loud. Most of this stuff is just, so again, terrible.
This is
terrible
is your big concern about Wolfenstein Youngblood. All right.
Well, yeah. So, anyways, all right, moving
fair
on.
enough. But I just want to. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
I suspect strongly that we're going to get a hint about another Commander Keen game at some point. It may not happen now because, again, they might want to see how the reaction to Youngblood works. But when they announce Commander Keen, that's going to like light up everybody on the planet, as far as like if you were at any point an old school gamer. If you're an old school gamer, this is something you've been waiting for forever. You know, this is something that I want to see them do well. I want to see them do it in such a way that it doesn't just cater to kids. It caters to all the old school gamers just as much as it caters to kids.
Mm-hmm. If anyone's not familiar with the connection here or the lore, the Commander Keen, the protagonist of course, the Commander Keen series from way back in the day, I believe in the 90s, is it's a side-scroller about a kid with a very wild imagination, and it's not entirely clear if the stuff that's happening to him is in his imagination or if it's actually happening to him, but he goes on these crazy adventures in outer space and stuff. His actual name is William Joseph Blazkowicz II. He is the grandson of B.J. Blazkowicz, the protagonist of the Wolfenstein series. So and we see in Youngblood, of course, it focuses on BJ's 2 daughters, so presumably one of them is the mother of Commander Keen. Mm-hmm. It says on this wiki here that Commander Keen's mother is named Susan Elizabeth McMichaels. Do we know the names of BJ's kids?
I'm pretty sure I've heard Susan.
Yeah.
Twice.
That's really cool. If they go in that direction, I mean, that would be just so cool, just because it's this sort of overarching lore that runs through this series that was established way back when id was first making these games. So I mean that's super exciting if you're a very nerdy old school gamer as we are. Anyway.
Yeah. So just quickly carrying on with just wrapping up what we're expecting to see. So that's something that and Commander Keen has been officially teased before. They had this trailer a long time ago where they were booting up files on an old drive, and Commander Keen was listed in there. So, and everything else that was listed in there has now come to fruition. So we're just waiting. This is the last thing that we're waiting for. And honestly, I hope that they do it well. And if they can do it well, then I'm going to be really excited. However, as far as other content goes, there's not much here. There's not enough to fill up 30 minutes, even if they stretch it. Rage 2 DLC, Doom Eternal, Elder Scrolls online expansion thing that's coming out, maybe. That's it. Youngblood. That's all. That's essentially all we're looking at. So they've got to have something that they haven't announced yet. They've got to have something that they're going to showcase and show off that is either going to involve new tech, new hardware, or new games. And Blades has been received very, 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 very poorly. So yeah, they're probably going to cover what they're going to showcase in Fallout 76. They're probably going to announce that come this winter, it's going to launch onto a couple of other platforms, and it's going to be free to play, and that they're going to that they're really trying to make things right, etc., etc., etc. That's entirely possible. I wouldn't hold my breath that any of that stuff actually works. Like I said, there's potential for it, but they actually have to be willing to really want to carry it through, not just to milk it as a general cash cow.
Right.
So if they're actually really interested in making this work, then great. But if they're not, then there's not much. And even all of that stuff, we still don't have enough for a full show. We still don't have enough to drag this out for a full, a full hour press conference, or even 50 minutes. It would be incredibly light. It would be incredibly weak for them to do that. So we are expecting more games. We're expecting either a continuation of some of their horror games, as was mentioned earlier already, or we're expecting some surprise announcements, or we're expecting them to actually show off Starfield. That may or may not show up this time around. That's still very much up in the air. This is a game that nobody knows anything about, other than it takes place in space, has something to do with space stations, and has been the brainchild of Todd Howard and several of their other best writers going on for basically 15 years, and they've been waiting for technology to catch up to let them make the game that they have wanted to. We know that was at some point some technical crossover or potential crossover with the Star Trek series that they were batting around, but ultimately they were just too busy and it fell through. So there's a long story behind what's been going on with this one, how they've been chasing it, where they're heading with it. So yeah, we'll see how.
Their best move is probably, if it's not ready, don't announce it this year.
And that's what they're doing. Like they've learned that lesson at the very least. They've learned that lesson from 76, because that bit them hard. And as we've talked about before, that wasn't even their most buggy game that they've ever put out. So the community has finally had it with the with the meme jokes about, is it a bug or a feature? Ha ha ha. It was funny the first 5 times you did it. After that, people got tired of it and they don't want to see that happen anymore. So so they're actually chasing after an actual quality assurance thing that they've never really done before. So,
yep, absolutely. And I hope that they make that decision, and I hope that they don't just. I hope they don't try to overhype it too early, because that'll hurt them. That will hurt them significantly. All right, Benny Carrillo, just wanted to answer your question quickly. There is a family connection to Doom Guy as well, with the Blazkowicz family.
But that can be a couple generations down the road too.
Yes, I'm not 100% sure what the connection is, but there is some kind of connection. But those 3 game series, Commander Keen, Wolfenstein, and Doom, they all take place in the same universe, and that is.
Oh! I need to correct this. So, it's not Sarah that I've heard in Youngblood. It's Soph. So Sophia is one of the girls,
but not Susan.
But not Susan. And Susan's kind of an old name for the previous generation. So if they wanted to kind of tweak that as far as like the lore goes, that makes sense. Like Susan's not exactly a young popular name these days. However, Sophia definitely is.
What about any idea what the other daughter is named?
Jess.
Jess. Okay, I was just trying to see if there could be any connection here because
Jessica or something like that.
All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's possible BJ had other kids too.
Yes. So. Yeah. It's also true.
All right.
And like I said, where we see this go, where we see the Commander Keen goes is going to be highly dependent on what we see happen here with Youngblood. If it's universally panned as a terrible game, then they'll just kind of have it as a footnote and they'll move on. If they may not even have either one of them as the mother. If the story is revered as really, really good, then it will obviously they're going to play with that a lot more, and they may end up even showcasing how Commander Keen comes about. In the term of setting up a love interest and a relationship and some other stuff down the road, because that's something that they might add as an expansion to an expansion or a new game or something like that. It all depends on, again, where they're kind of sitting with their heads. So,
Russ Hunt, silly. BJ doesn't make kids. I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it. Okay. I think I said 2 or 3 years ago that a gritty open world Commander Keen game could be awesome. It could also be terrible.
Yeah, it's one of the any Commander Keen game could be amazing or just garbage. If they made a Commander Keen game that basically embraced like the Commander Keen that we know and love, that we played through, and they ported it into a world that basically made it into a cross between Zelda, the newest Zelda game, and Skyrim, I'm pretty sure they would have an epic level hit on their hands.
Yeah, especially if it keeps
dwarf everything else.
If it keeps the quirky humor, and if it's about this kid who's potentially in an imagination world fighting aliens and
I need to point this out. You could have it so that you could make a female or a male Commander Keen. Keen is not exactly we know it's his kid, but I mean, you could just add a sister to the mix, and you could basically be be off and running, and that's something that again, it's like they would have that one leg up on the Zelda series, but then they would also have the universal any direction that you could go with the Skyrim thing. So again, it's like if they could do this on paper, this thing is either it's a smash out of the park or it's really, really, really cringy.
Yeah, depending on how it's done, because I don't think anything like that's been attempted before.
Yeah,
a child protagonist in a gritty open world, and maybe not as gritty. I mean, it could be kind of cartoonish, but it could be depending on how it's done, could be fun. But we should move on. We've got lots to talk about as far as CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077. But first of all, I want to say we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Speaking of which, you are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry. And we're talking about E3 2019. What are we expecting? So We've talked about Bethesda for way longer than I expected to, but we're going to move on here to talk about CD Projekt Red and what they're planning, what they're bringing to the show. Now, we know exactly where they're going to be on the show floor this year, and they are in the... hang on. it slipped from the top of my mind. Which Warner Brothers? Yes, they've got a corner of the Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment booth in the South Hall. So if you happen to be there, that's where you can find them. And so they're right there beside all of the other big wigs. The Ubisoft booth is right across the corridor from them. The Bethesda area is right across the other corridor. Their kitty corner from Bandai Namco. So that's where they are. They've got a section in the South Hall there. Now we are also expecting them to be making a showing at some point on some kind of a stage. Is that correct? They've got. Fill us in there, Sib. Like, what are we expecting to see from them this year? Are they giving their own kind of showcase, or are they going to be piggybacking on one of the other ones?
They're expected to be piggybacking on the Microsoft show. So we're going to be getting that on the Sunday afternoon.
That's June 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And
and that's probably where their biggest showcase is going to be. Because the Sony is not there this year. So they only have one showcase that they can step onto and really take the show. There was some speculation that they might show up at the PC gaming show, but that got bought out by Epic, and all that's going to be is basically trying to sell Epic Game Launcher to everybody and their dog. So that's highly unlikely now, because they have their own launcher that's coming out to combat the GOG has been, GOG, man, I wish I had. So, he's been training with Rocky. They've been running up and down, the steps. They've been, playing that music in the background, which I don't want to even hum because that'll set off a claim on the video. But GOG has been training hard, man. It's been training hard. They're ready to go. They're launching into the stratosphere, and they're ready to take on the entire universe, basically. So, yeah.
Right, yeah, with the announcement of GOG Galaxy 2.0, looks like it's ready to take on Epic. So, that should be interesting. So, anyway, yeah, so Epic and CD Projekt are not exactly the best of friends at the moment, I would imagine.
No, they...
So they're probably not going to be showing up at the PC gaming show.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of animosity slowly building, let's say. There's been a lot of stuff slowly building up, and it's going to get worse. So yeah, that's
all right. So
that's pretty much how that goes. Now, we are expecting them to have another place at E3 though. As in like a physical place, as in like a location. We know that they have a little tiny corner of the Warner Brothers booth that has a little theater kind of set up where you're gonna line up, you're gonna go, you're gonna sit in, and you're gonna watch a 20-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute play of the game. And that's gonna be on the show floor, and lots of people can line up. Now, we know that there's going to be another session elsewhere that's going to be held in another section of the convention center that you can only get to with the right access, with the business and professional things. You can't go there if you're just the gamer attendee. So this is really interesting. This means that they have another room that most likely has been set aside. That I think as of yesterday when I was looking this up, it has not been confirmed yet. It has not been shown off yet as to who has what for some of these final rooms that have been announced. So yeah, really interesting because basically this means that there's some more possibly heading to the show that we haven't seen or heard yet. I had an interesting email yesterday. Somebody says, hey, so you remember that theory that you had that the other game that they've been working on is another Cyberpunk game, and that they actually have 2 Cyberpunk games in development right now, and that it is definitely not the Witcher game, which I told everybody, and I gave you all the reasons for why it's not another Witcher game, and I hate to say it, but Shocker, I was right on it. We've known that for a long time, except for the people who are just really butthurt for another Witcher game. It's coming, guys, but it's not going to come until after all this legal stuff has been sorted out. But somebody was like, so they may be gearing up something to show, not big, but maybe just a teaser or something like that, and it may actually be another Cyberpunk game. So you might be right on that. So I'm not gonna congratulate myself yet, because we don't know what it is. It hasn't been confirmed yet. And the fact that we don't even know if they are confirming that. We know that they're going to have two things at the very minimum, but two things were confirmed to be basically heading over to E3 this year from CDPR. We know that one of them is obviously Cyberpunk 2077, and we didn't know what the other one was, but then the GOG announcement came out. We can assume that probably it's going to be GOG, but there's still a chance that they might have that other one, or they might have a teaser for the other product.
Well,
they're lining up.
I want to read a statement here from Pyotr Nielubovich, the CFO of CD Projekt, because a couple days ago, CD Projekt published their financial report for the first quarter of 2019, and this is a statement from their chief financial officer. The development of our next flagship game, Cyberpunk 2077, is proceeding at full speed with over 400 people currently involved in the project. In the first quarter, this is not important, he just talks about what they spent. The most important E3 fair in the group's history is upon us. We have a truly exciting lineup and cannot wait to present it. For the first time in our history, we will also be showcasing Cyberpunk 2077 at our public stand. So if you head over to their corner of the booth at the Warner Brothers area on the show floor, they'll be showcasing Cyberpunk 2077 there. But I find it really interesting that he talks about an exciting lineup that they're bringing to the show. Not just we're showcasing Cyberpunk 2077, but they're bringing a lineup of things. Now, what's an exciting lineup? Like, 2 points makes a line. So technically, if you have two things, you could call that a lineup. But we know one thing is going to be Cyberpunk 2077. As Cyb said, GOG Galaxy 2.0 is probably another thing, but I have a hard time describing that as an exciting lineup. Maybe something from Gwent, but again, it seems like there's got to be more than that for it to be a truly exciting lineup that he's talking about, and for this to be the most important E3 in the company's history.
That and we have this other little thing kind of floating around with what he said is that, and why this confirms that they're going to have two locations. They're going to have two things going on there, is because he's made a difference between, wanting people to come see their public stand. And we know that they have a private stand because of all these people that have been getting invites, which just for the record, I'm not saying anything that's privy information here. I'm just saying information that people have slipped out and probably shouldn't have. We know that they have they have another one. They have they have what they're going for, and then they have another one where it's like where it's the private access business professionals only, because we know that that some of these people have been told that they have to get these classes. And again, I'm not looking at anybody that we know super well. I'm looking at people who have posted this stuff on Twitter when they were not supposed to, or they've posted something on Twitter going, hey, I just got an invite to my absolute favorite, most anticipated game of this next generation. And then they make a YouTube video or they make a Facebook video a couple of days later going, you know what my most anticipated title of is for the next generation? And that's Cyberpunk 2077. So it's kind of like, dude, you weren't supposed to say anything that you were invited to this thing, and then you basically just confirmed it by being really clever. It's like, yeah. Anyways.
All right. So anything more to say about that? We're expecting a Cyberpunk 2077 release date this year. We're highly anticipating that.
We are. We still think that this is going to come sooner rather than later for a whole bunch of reasons. The biggest being that they've spent an enormous amount of money, an enormous amount of time optimizing this thing for the current generation of consoles. it would be a lot of wasted work for them to just kind of throw this away, to throw all that effort away and not utilize it. Yeah, it would be terrible for them to just kind of throw up their hands and say, yeah, no, it's not coming. You know, whoever, whatever, doesn't matter, doesn't care, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, we suspect strongly that they are working on another Cyberpunk game that is going to incorporate the multiplayer. That when they were looking at the timing, when they were looking at the release, they basically need to separate the two, right? Because one, just they couldn't cram both of them into the same game and introduce this as a new IP at the same time. They needed to separate that. Originally, what they were going for was more multiplayer focused, but they decided to focus in on a single player story and make it a really good one, capitalize on their amazing ability to tell a story without getting bogged down by the multiplayer. Originally, back in when we first started talking about this, it was still the plan to incorporate some multiplayer in there somewhere, but then that changed over the last 2 years. Basically, they were looking at stuff, they were measuring it up and saying, okay, we got to do this. However, there was a lot of work put into the multiplayer, and there's still a lot of desire to make the multiplayer system work. So that might be why we're seeing another game follow up within basically almost within a year. And if that follow up is the multiplayer version of it, then that makes a lot of sense. And it allows them to really focus on two great projects at the same time, being in the same world, without having to diverge any of their effort into trying to balance two things. They tried to make The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk at the same time, and that fell through. It caused them a lot of grief and a lot of headaches because they were trying to focus on two different things that were vastly different from each other at the same time. Now they don't have to do that because Cyberpunk multiplayer versus Cyberpunk 2077, the single player story, the introduction of the universe to the gaming masses, this can be done now at the same time without overstepping too many toes. You can have two people team leading because the experiences are completely different, the stories are different, and you can take people and bounce them from one project to the other because it is the same universe, it's the same world. And that's why I've consistently said that the next game that they're working on is going to be another Cyberpunk game. They're not going to... There's some temptation for them to do kind of like a horror game or something that they can kind of diversify their portfolio. But when you really just look at the numbers, the thing that makes the most amount of sense is for them to work on a multiplayer game that combines the best of what they can do as a studio and the best they can do with this IP, put them together, put it out there, very closely following the single player story, and then combining the two to actually make it kind of a connected series. That would be the best. That would be the most logical thing to do. But logic doesn't trump everything, and unfortunately, this stuff is entirely in the hands of the developers, and if they want to make some crazy decisions, they absolutely can. And in no way is that a bad thing. That's their creative freedom, and that's their creative right. Just because it makes logical sense doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to do it. They might have scrapped multiplayer forever. We don't even know yet, right? Their next game might be something completely different, horror game, racing game, anything. Literally, it could be literally anything. And we don't know for sure until they announce it. Lots of projects are put on the back burner. I mean, look at, kind of our next little thing that we're going to just briefly talk about is Dead Island. Dead Island 2, the thing has been, in development for 5 years. And suddenly there's some news about it. They showcased that thing several years ago, and everybody thought it was dead and buried. Turns out it's still alive. So the developers can make any choice that they want to. They can scrap anything, bring anything back, whatever. It's if you made The Witcher 3, you get that right. You can do whatever you want. So Yeah. So that's basically what it boils down to.
A couple of people in our chat are concerned about the thought of a Cyberpunk multiplayer game, comparing it to sort of what Rockstar did with Red Dead Redemption 2 and then their Red Dead Online.
Well, and this is the point as to why they have maybe split these two things up. Because Red Dead Online and Red Dead 2 is still technically classified as the same game. As far as like the company's concerned, it's the same product. You buy one, you get access to the other. That's kind of how it works. So there's a lot of people that are standing back going, oh no, I don't want them to do that. Yeah, I don't want them to do that either. What I want them to do is I want them to make the multiplayer its own thing and do it well enough that that's not a kind of a stitched together thing, which is what I would say the online version of Red Dead has become. Red Dead definitely became a stitched together, kind of slapped together kind of thing. It wasn't good. It didn't have any story. It was kind of garbage overall. And I said that. I said that so many times. I even said something. I can't remember if I said it on the podcast, but I know I said it to us personally. I said in 3 years from last fall when we had we had Fallout 76 and Red Dead Online or Red Dead 2. I said in 3 years more people are going to be playing Fallout 76 than they're going to be playing Red Dead 2. And there's a good chance that there'll be more people playing Fallout 76 than they will be playing the online version of Red Dead. And if I had said that at the time, like if I had really announced that at the time, most people would have called me crazy and insane and insulted me. But it's still true because of the way that these types of games work, because of the type of environment that they offer. One is done really kind of poorly, and the other one is done as equally poorly, but different in the way that it has room to grow. Both of these games have room to grow, but like just look at the numbers. It's like Red Dead is not done well. The only thing that's like the online version of it, and the fact that how many people are playing Red Dead right now, not very much. I should probably double check the numbers on it, but it's like, and so what basically what I want and what I think we're seeing is we're seeing CDPR going out of their way to make sure that we actually have a legitimately good version of the Cyberpunk multiplayer world to play in. That they're not going to give it the same kind of slapstick something that we see in Mass Effect Andromeda or what we see in Red Dead Online or what we see in a couple other poor versions, right? So this is, I think, where they're heading.
Right. Now, refresh my memory. What do we have for visual character creation options in Cyberpunk 2077?
For what?
When you in the character creator for Cyberpunk 2077,
apparently it's going to be pretty big.
that's what I thought. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I think you're going to have pretty diverse options for visually styling your character.
Oh my god!
And so that's one big difference. Also, I saw one of the comments was concerned about the character creation was only in the online version in Red Dead, and but we know there's going to be a character creator in this single player Cyberpunk 2077. All right, so we are just a couple of weeks away from E3. It's the big weekend.
Let me update so the numbers. Red Dead right now on Twitch has less than 500 people watching it. So, how's that for the game of the year last year? It's like, seriously.
Well, with the single player titles, once you play through it, once you watch it, it sort of gets relegated to the realm of speedrunning after that, I think.
Yes.
It's not, it's the ever evolving online titles that people typically, they continually get the big views on Twitch.
How is League of Legends still pulling 150,000? Oh my god, that's just how. Guys, I might be forced to go back to League of Legends for some Let's Plays in the fall. I don't know. Let's hope something comes out and can offer some level of competition, because this is just embarrassing.
So the big Microsoft Bethesda showcases are on Sunday, June 9th. Microsoft starts at... I've got to do some math here. Okay. So Microsoft's press conference is Sunday, June 9th, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and that is 10 p.m. Eastern Time, or 10 p.m. Central European Time. So 10 o'clock in the evening if you're in Central Europe, 4 o'clock in the afternoon if you're in the Eastern Time Zone in North America, and Bethesda's starts at 8:30 Eastern Time 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's 2:30 in the morning Central European Time on Monday. If you're staying up for the Bethesda press conference, that's the time it's at there. Then also on Sunday the 9th, we have the Devolver Digital Conference, or the Devolver Digital Showcase, if you're interested in that, which I still am, despite the fact that they're buddying up with Epic a little more closely than I'm comfortable with. Anyway, that's 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and 4 in the morning, Central European Time on Monday. Monday is, of course, an incredibly busy day. You've got press conferences from Ubisoft, Square Enix, the PC Gaming Show is that day, and then something called the Kinda Funny Games Showcase. This is new, I believe. I don't remember hearing about this one before. I don't even know what that is. And if you're at all interested in EA's stuff and what they've got going on, they've got multiple streams happening on the 7th and the 8th. So that's the Friday and the Saturday prior to E3. Doesn't say here when or what, but that's what's happening then. So a couple weeks, and of course we're going to be live streaming as we typically do, giving our live reactions to some of these showcases. We'll put out an official schedule on our Discord server, letting you know when we'll be live and what we'll be talking about, which showcases we will be restreaming. We got to be careful because we got knocked, like last year, we got knocked off YouTube. We lost our ability to live stream because of some music in one of the conferences. Actually, it happened twice. And so, thankfully that got restored really quick, because I think we weren't the only people that happened to, as far as I know.
Yeah, it happened to a lot of people. So we're gonna be doing a little bit different this year. So we're gonna be letting you all know kind of how we're doing it. We also have at on the Sunday, like I said, we have a team of people who are going to be playing the new Halo Infinite game. They're going to be at a location playing it, obviously, because it's not out available yet. It's only accessible at a handful of small places. So we've got a team that's headed in to do that. So we'll probably have some updates from the field on that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is looking to be a really interesting E3, and the fact that Sony's not here this year is really, really, really interesting. Of course, right before the actual Microsoft conference, we're actually going to be doing, of course, the community podcast for Cyberpunk at the same time. So we're going to go from that. We're going to launch right from that directly into watching the live show. So, and we're going to be doing that in tandem with Last O'Meal, Mad Queen Show, and the Neon Arcade. So it's going to be really interesting. And this tomorrow we have one of the key people from Talsorian Games, which is Mike Pondsmith's company, and they were working on the new Cyberpunk Red game, which is going to be the new pen and paper version of Cyberpunk of the Cyberpunk universe. He is going to be joining the show tomorrow, so be sure to tune into that, because it's going to be pretty cool to talk with somebody directly that spends every day working directly with Mike Pondsmith. He's got to be really careful what he can say. So there's a list of things that we can't talk about yet, but we're also going to have some more guests and some more things going on with guests as far as that podcast goes. And we're also going to be trying to get it up onto the audio format as well. So yeah, so it's going to be really things have been going really well with it. We're really happy. And
Yeah, it's been a
excited with the
popular.
overall
It's
direction.
been a popular show. So whose channel is it on tomorrow?
It'll be on the Mad Queens show tomorrow, and on the actual E3, I believe it's actually back to us. So that's interesting, and in no way did we plan that out. That's just the way that it fell.
All right, and so
yeah,
that is the Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast collaboration with us, Mad Queen Show, Last Known Meal, and the Neon Arcade, and so tomorrow it's on the Mad Queen Show's channel. So definitely check that out. Michael asks, are you guys going to do a Let's Play of Cyberpunk or just a review of sorts? We're probably going to do tons of Cyberpunk 2077
we're gonna do
content.
it.
And I mean,
We're gonna
let
be
us know
streaming
what you want to see. Like, if we
We're
want
going
to
to
do...
be streaming it. We're going to be making guides for it. We're going to be doing, of course, an official review for it. The only thing that throws kind of a wrench into the inner workings of it is the fact that it's got a lot of nudity in it, and so we have as yet to confirm exactly where Twitch is going to stand on this. We don't necessarily want to jump into it full bore and then suddenly have them reverse their course, because there's just maybe, it's full frontal nudity, not just, waist up nudity. So people get really kind of crazy with that.
There are
kind of
standards
stuff,
on
so.
YouTube and Twitch regarding all of that, so we may have to limit it to edited content, but we will definitely be doing tons of content, and let us know what you want to see. If you join our Discord server, there's a content requests area there. You can let us know what you want to see, and that goes for any game that we're doing. It's often, these are decisions we have to make on, anytime a new game comes out, we try to say, what do we think that our audience wants to see? Do they want to see Let's Plays? Do they want to see guides? Do they want to see, reviews? Do they just want to see general content? So, let us know if there's a game coming out and you want to see some specific thing. Let us know, and we're happy to oblige whenever we can. But Cyberpunk, that's going to be a big one. We're gonna do tons of content for that. If you look at the amount of content that we did for Fallout 4, it's probably going to be sort of on that level. So, pretty excited for that. All right. I think that is about it for this edition of the Augmented Reality Podcast. So thank you so much for everybody for listening. Before you close that tab or move on to the next video, please slam that like button. That tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. And it also, leave comments and subscribe to the channel for more content. And do all of that great stuff that tells YouTube, hey, we like this show. Thank you also especially to our Patreon supporters, Shannon Vega, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters, and our channel members, Captain Dammit and Jason Cropper. You were going to say something, Si?
Yeah, just, did we actually talk, or did we skip the whole release date thing for Cyberpunk 2077?
We talked about it briefly. I did mention...
Oh, okay, briefly.
We're anticipating,
yeah. Yeah, we're still anticipating to answer Overlord's question. Yes, we are anticipating a release date announcement. Sorry, we didn't actually clarify that. We're anticipating one for this year, and that should show up, most likely that's going to show up at the Microsoft press showing on the 9th.
All right, excellent. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, wherever else the podcast populates to, we thank you for joining us. We thank you for your likes and follows and interactions on all of those platforms, and feel free to join us Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings on YouTube for the live show where you can interact with us and other listeners and be part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality content. My name is Asheninity. On behalf of Subsidian, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.